Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're tackling a universal social faux pas that literally leaves us all in a mild panic. You know the one. You're staring at someone you just met and you realize your brain has completely 100% deleted their name. We are talking about that incredibly frustrating yet completely common phenomenon of instantly blanking on a name.
Okay, let's dive right into this highly relatable scenario. Picture this, right? You meet someone new, you look them right in the eye, you hear them clearly say their name, and then, poof, gone. Within 3 seconds, it has vanished into the ether. You're left holding your hand out, smiling politely and internally screaming.
So you stand there, you just nod, and you desperately hope they don't notice that you have absolutely no idea what to call them. We've all been there. We feel that internal panic and just assume we either have a terrible memory or we're being completely rude. But here's a highly validating truth from cognitive psychology. It rarely means you don't care. It turns out forgetting someone's name almost instantly is rarely a memory problem. Actually, it often points to a highly active, complex mind that is simply overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information it's trying to process in real time.
All right, Section 1, the meaning-making machine. This is all about why arbitrary labels slip away.
Cognitive psychology tells us that your brain is, at its core, a meaning-making machine. To understand why names slip away from us, we first need to look at how your brain actually stores information and decides what is important enough to keep. You see, your mind strongly prefers to remember things that connect directly to your existing knowledge, your emotions, or your personal experiences. It wants context. It craves a story. If I tell you a wild story about a vacation, you're going to remember the details because they paint a vivid picture in your mind. But a random string of numbers or an isolated word, your brain actively rejects it simply because there's nothing to hook it onto.
And honestly, here is the core of the problem. To your brain, a name is mostly just an arbitrary label. A name like John or Sarah doesn't inherently describe what a person does, what their personality is like, or who they truly are. There's this incredibly famous concept in psychology known as the Baker-Baker paradox that perfectly illustrates this. If you tell someone that a man is a baker, like he bakes bread for a living, they almost always remember it. Why? Because it has meaning. It gives you a visual of bread, flour, a hot oven. But if you tell them his last name is Baker, they almost instantly forget it. It's the exact same word, but as a name, it's just an arbitrary label. Because this label lacks immediate, practical meaning, your brain doesn't attach strong importance to it. It feels like random data, and without a meaningful anchor, it just gets discarded. You might easily remember an interesting story they told you or what they do for a living, but that verbal label, it slips right through the cracks.
Moving on to Section 2, the anatomy of an introduction, or the 3-second mental sprint.
Think about the actual sequence of an introduction. You're shaking hands, you hear the name, you're trying not to squeeze their hand too hard, you're managing all these social cues, and boom, the conversation has moved right along. Your brain is essentially running a mental sprint. Because human memory relies heavily on building associations, timing is absolutely everything. In this incredibly tight window, your brain has literally zero time to build a solid link or create a visual image to associate with that new name before the next piece of information comes flying at you. During those crucial 3 seconds, your attention is radically divided. Psychologists note that social situations actually trigger a mild stress response. So get this, 60% of your brain power is hyper-focused inward. You're worrying about your posture, your impression, or whether you have spinach in your teeth. Another 30% is busy analyzing their facial expressions and reading their body language. Then you're already dedicating another 9% to thinking about what to ask them next so there isn't an awkward silence. Because your attention is so aggressively divided and focused inward on surviving the interaction, that tiny little 1% allocated to actually hearing the name ensures it never fully enters your short-term memory in the first place.
Which brings us to Section 3, Faces over Verbal Labels, the biological reality of human memory.
The crucial point here is a biological reality. Your brain is literally hardwired by thousands of years of evolution to prioritize faces over names. We actually have a highly specialized region in our brain called the fusiform face area, and it is dedicated entirely to recognizing faces. A face provides a massive visual anchor that your brain immediately latches onto, processing dozens of microexpressions in milliseconds. A name, on the other hand, it's just a tiny, fleeting piece of verbal information floating around without a picture attached. This is exactly why you can so easily recognize someone you met weeks ago at a party and know exactly how they made you feel, but completely blank on what they're called. From a biological standpoint, evolutionary survival depended entirely on recognizing a friend from a foe by analyzing their face, not by recalling an arbitrary verbal label.
Let's look at Section 4, the overactive mind, mental noise and deep thinking.
If you're a deep thinker, forgetting names is actually a symptom of your highly active mind running 100 different background processes all at once. We call this cognitive overload. When your mind is running multiple thoughts at the exact same time, it creates mental noise, and this overthinking actively blocks the fragile memory encoding process. Instead of smoothly filing the name away into your short-term memory, your brain gets totally distracted by its own internal dialogue. You're thinking, did I say my own name clearly, or what should I ask them next, or wait, do I know someone else who looks like them? As a result, that simple audio cue of their name bounces right off. You are analyzing, processing, and thinking so deeply about the interaction that the surface-level data simply cannot get through the noise.
So, let's bring all of this together. The brain drops the name for a perfectly logical, even brilliant set of reasons. The label lacks immediate meaning. It gets completely overpowered by your brain's massive visual face processing centers. The fragile audio encoding is blocked by your own internal mental noise and cognitive overload. The introduction happens way too fast to build familiar associations, and ultimately, your brain makes an active choice. Without a quick association, its default setting is to simply throw out this random unattached data to save processing power for things that actually matter in human connection. Things like decoding their personality, remembering their job, or figuring out if they are someone you can trust. It's an efficiency mechanism, not a failure.
And finally, Section 5, reframing your memory, turning a perceived weakness into a strength.
The next time this happens, please don't be so hard on yourself. Let's look at what is actually going on and reframe how you think about your own mind. This is the absolute most important takeaway from our explainer today. Ready? Your memory isn't broken. You aren't being rude, you aren't thoughtless, and you certainly aren't careless. Your highly active brain is simply doing what it does best. It's prioritizing social cues, reading the room, analyzing faces for trust, and trying to make deep, meaningful human connections instead of just acting like a dictionary memorizing random labels. It is a true sign of a complex, busy mind doing exactly what it evolved to do.
We hope this explainer helped decode the real psychology behind your mind. It really shifts the perspective, doesn't it? Instead of feeling embarrassed in that 3-second window, it leaves you to wonder, if your brain is this busy prioritizing deep connections over surface-level labels, how else might your unique wiring actually be your greatest strength? Keep that in mind the next time a name slips away. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.